Boruto episode 78, Everyone's Motives. So this episode is pretty entertaining. Of course I'm a week behind on this, so I'm going into watching the next episode very soon. But I like this episode. It was fairly simple, not a ton of epic stuff actually happened, but I kind of like the fact that it seemed like a decent progression as far as, it's like, okay, the characters, at least the kids, they get out of the cave. It's like, all right, well, we have to figure out the next step of our plan. So now we have to decide how we're going to split things up. So we're going to go after Mitsuki, but I want, Shikadai is like, I want Chocho, Inojin. You guys go back to the village and then, tell everybody what's going on. So I was like, all right, I like that idea. I kind of like the fact that we get to see, admittedly, more of Mitsuki in his journey. In the next episode, I did look at the title. It is called, I think, a reunion with Mitsuki or an encounter with Mitsuki. And I'm like, all right, based on this episode being a decent bit of a journey for the kids, it's like, all right, that proves that there's a lot going into what they're doing in this episode. There's a lot of stuff going on with, the village, and how it's like, all right, well, we need to figure out the next step of our plan. We have a little bit extra information because for whatever reason, the dude that blew up survived. And that, honestly, that's what stuck out to me most of the whole episode. Everything that happened, just especially with me being, doing this a week late, that was the thing that still stuck out the most, where I was like, he should have been dead. Like, that explosion was ridiculously huge. Not only was it an explosion that was like a big explosion, but it wasn't like it was near him. It was the explosion. He was the base of the explosion. Like, it was on his back. Like, that centipede was almost like half the length of his body. It was like up most of his back, and it was like kind of on his shoulder. Like, he looked over and it's like, oh, I'm dead. And that thing blew up, and then it's like, yeah, he's really wounded and stuff. I'm like, the explosion was on his body, and he's just like, he's bandaged, head to toe. I'm just like, they could have just killed him. Why didn't they just kill him? It was just so weird. It was like they had to save him because it was like too mature, I guess, to kill him or something weird like that. I don't know, but I just thought that was so odd. I'm like, that explosion was so big, and it's not like it was a main character. It's not like it was like, holy crap, they killed this person off, and it was like in this insane moment or something like that, and then they tricked us and made us mad. It was like they did it with a minor character, which almost makes it, to me at least, it makes it a bit more annoying that they did it with a minor character compared to doing it with an important character where it's like the fake out. But I'd be mad either way, where it's like, the explosion was literally on the guy and it blew up, and I'm like, he's dead. Like, they could just let him be dead, especially considering the fact that he's such a minor character, unless they're about to make him important or something. I don't know, maybe he's big in the manga, so they technically just did that to, be like, hey, here's this dude, to give him a grand introduction. I'm just like, he should be dead. And it was just so weird, but I was like, all right, he lived through that. But Neji, but yeah, so he ends up living, and so everyone's going through their ideas. They find out what's going on. They realize that the villains are heading to the land of Earth. So I'll just say Boruto, but Naruto, he picks up the phone. It's like, hey, Tsuchikage, I need you to let my people in so we can figure this out. And it's just like, nah, we'll deal with it. And I thought that was so weird. It was like, okay, they still have these weird tensions between the villages and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's really odd that they have that tension. It's still like, they have to get permission. So, I mean, well, that part I kind of understand, where they would still need permission just so everyone knows exactly what's going on. They aren't just like surprised. But it was still odd. It was like, yeah, I can't do that. And I guess the idea behind it was like, if I let your people come in, it makes me seem a bit weaker to my own people, and that could lead to insurrection and stuff. So it was like, oh, that's interesting that they still have those, they still have the tense politics, like just far less compared to before, with war and everything, but they still have that stuff there, where they have to, the leaders still have to maintain that image of, I'm in control, I'm not letting your people come in because they're better or something. It's like, no, my people can handle it. So I was like, all right, well, that's definitely interesting. And it's like, all right, well, we'll see how that ultimately ends up playing out. And then we still have all the super crappy Jonin or whatever, whoever they were at the end of the episode, where it's like, they just got destroyed. There were like 4 of them, and that was the main thing. That was one of the other things that stood out, where I was kind of annoyed. I was like, it's a generic, it's really all storytelling. It's not just in anime and shonen, but in general, that whole plot armor deal, where it's like, everyone just was wiped out, but the main character comes in, and it makes sense. For some people, it's like, all right, well, yeah, Naruto comes in to fight Pain, sure, that makes sense. He's the main character. He's literally like, he just got like a new ability. That totally makes sense. Naruto and Sasuke go into like the final villain of the series. They just got new abilities. It's that perfect thing. It's like perfect timing. You have the main character come in, they do something super epic or crazy. Maybe they get saved here and there, sure. But this was one of those situations where I'm watching it and I'm like, so we got these characters and it's officially shown off that they're all puppets, because they referenced it before, and I think it was I can't remember who actually referenced it, but someone mentioned like the person looked like they were a puppet, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. And so that kind of led to the whole Akatsuki thing again, because of the clay bombs and the puppets, but they're all puppets. So it's like, okay, that's cool. And so these puppets are fairly tough, but apparently they're so insanely strong that the one dude with long hair, he was fighting by himself. He beat up like, it seemed like there were like a dozen people, and of course his power is pretty nuts. Like, some of those people were definitely dead. Like, there was one person that was literally bent backwards and like their feet were stuck in the ground and their head, I was like, okay, that person can't be alive. So some people were actually dead there because they were like melted into the ground. It's like really crazy, but they were all defeated. And then it goes into, oh, here's Boruto and Sarada and Shikadai, and it's like, they're gonna make it somehow. They're gonna live. So I'm curious in this next episode how that'll play out. But it's just like this weird thing where it's like, I know characters are meant to be strong, and they've done that a ton in the original Naruto series, of course. But this just seemed weird. I was like, so far from what we've seen, I'm like, I understand these characters are fairly tough, but they're supposed to be Jonin going out, and I'm just like, they have like no special skills or anything like that. Like, they all get wiped out, and I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense to me. At least against one person, because the way they've done it, at least, is like, well, if he could do that, why did they even send two people? You know, it's one of those weird things where it's like, if he's that powerful, why would they need to do literally anything with the other puppet dude that was talking to Mitsuki, who's totally spoiling everything? He was like, yeah, I'll just tell you later. He was like giving out a bunch of secrets, and the guy's like, we can't trust Mitsuki yet. And it's like, why do you need two? Like, if he's that insanely powerful, what's the purpose? So I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a decent explanation. I feel like it's just going to be classic storytelling style where it's like, yeah, beat all those nameless folk, but like, you kids are just so tough. Like, I just don't know how in the world it's going to work. I guess they're going to have the only thing that would even remotely make sense is they're about to die. You know, Sarada using the Sharingan doesn't really work well enough. Shikadai can't use his abilities well enough, and neither can Boruto, even with the Rasengan. And it's like, alright, boom, I gotta do my summoning jutsu. And so he summons Garaga to, defeat the guy. That's like the only thing that they can do. And it'll probably work. That'll probably be how they do it, because there's no reason they should win hand to hand. They shouldn't even be able to survive, admittedly, a couple of minutes hand to hand, based on what we saw with that guy versus a bunch of Jonin, and they're melting into the ground and they're freaking out and getting taken over and stuff by the monsters, which also displayed a bit of emotion. I thought that was interesting, where the dude with the tonfa, the same one who's gonna end up fighting the kids, he destroys one of like the clay figures because it was weaker, and it's like, it's better to just kill him off than to have it like suffer in existence. And then the other creature that was with them like walks over to the pile and kind of just stares at it, and I was like, that's really weird. Like, these little clay creature things kind of have emotions and connections, and I was like, what is going on here? So it seems like they're kind of diving deeper into something for Mitsuki's character, which I love that concept, because that's the whole thing with him, is like, he's basically a newborn and he has to figure out what it means to feel emotion, because he's talking to the puppet guy where it's like, man, you got emotions I can't even comprehend, like, humans are so crazy to me. And for Mitsuki, it's kind of the exact same situation, but the puppets don't, they don't actually realize that from Mitsuki's standpoint. So I thought that was a cool idea, and it was like, all right, I'm excited to see where this goes, but that also kind of has to mean something for those clay creatures and what that ability is and stuff like that. So maybe we'll get an explanation, maybe we won't, but in general, I like the concept of them showing Mitsuki see the second sort of creature looking at the pile of rubble, because it's like he's starting to get that connection. He realizes like, oh, these things can sense something's missing, something's off. It may not be exact sadness, but it's like, that's different than what it just was. So I like that idea of Mitsuki kind of noticing that, because it develops his character just a little bit, and so hopefully we'll get more of that in the very next episode when they actually do have this reunion with them. But I thought it was cool. Yeah, like I said, I liked the episode. Nothing like super grand, but it was one of those episodes that I think in retrospect, I appreciate it more now, because it's like, when you really look at it, it's just one of those episodes where it's like, they actually did a lot. Like, you have a ton of episodes where it's like a bunch of talking and stuff. But this, they were talking, it was like, all right, I need you guys to go back to the village. The village is figuring out their own thing, so they're making calls and making moves there. Then you have the kids actually going to the Land of Stone, and they're like right behind Mitsuki. Then you have the Jonin that went to the Land of Stone, and then they all got destroyed. And so now the kids are going to get into a fight, but they're right behind Mitsuki. And so when you put it together like that, it's like, the episode may not have been like, like, oh crap, it was this epic fighting episode, but it's one of those really good episodes where it's like, they actually did a lot with the time. Like, a lot of stuff actually happened. So it's one of those things where it wasn't the craziest episode to watch, but it was definitely like, when you look at it all, it's like, they actually did a ton in this episode. So I definitely appreciate it for that, because it was like, they went from getting out of the cave all the way to the Land of Stone, and then the Earth, or not the Earth, but Naruto called the Land of Stone and stuff like that, and it's like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, and they show off those politics a little bit. But they did a lot in this episode, so I definitely like it for that. But I'm certainly looking forward to an action episode with the next one, especially considering they shouldn't be able to beat this guy. They better pull off the summoning jutsu, because if they beat him otherwise, I'm gonna be super annoyed, because I'm like, I know the Rasengan is a cool move, but let's face it, it is not that powerful. Like, it's powerful as a hit, but it's like, all right, technically it's one of the easiest moves to dodge. Like, he throws it and his becomes invisible, so you think it's just gone. Adds a whole new level to like the stealth component of it and everything like that. Totally understand it. But there are so many moves in the Naruto universe, and it's like, especially with them being puppets, I mean, obviously I'm sure the puppets are fireproof, but it's just like, there's so much stuff. It's like, there's fire, there's lightning moves, there's other wind moves and stuff, and I'm like, they have these Jonin go out like a dozen, and they just all get beat up, because it's like, I don't know what this is, and they're all sunk into the ground. I'm just like, does nobody summon except for main characters or anything like that? It's just kind of mind-blowing sometimes when you watch it, and it's been like that before in the Naruto series, and it's a big component of like anything action-based where the main characters always have to kind of win. But it's just like, sometimes it just gets ridiculous. So it's like, the Jonin look so insanely weak, which is admittedly kind of a part of the show where it's like, yeah, people aren't super tough like they used to be, because they don't need to be in order to survive. That admittedly is kind of natural life. Like, people get weaker if it's not like times of war and insane stuff. You're just like, you don't train in certain things, and it's true, and it definitely shows, because people just keep getting destroyed, at least if they aren't main characters, but they can survive explosions on their backs. But hey, that's I thought of the episode. Thought it was good. Of course, I'd love to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Going into the next episode, if you haven't seen it already, would love to know your predictions on how you guys think the kids are going to end up, taking on the villain. Totally can't remember his name. I know they showed off like all the different characters, and they were saying their names a bunch in this, and I was like, I don't remember any of you guys, and I don't really care. Just because it's like, whatever for these characters, honestly. But would love to know your predictions on how this fight is going to go. Like I said, for me personally, I think they're going to whip out the summoning jutsu. It's like, he just got it. Use it with the snake. That's the only way they should be able to win. Even with the Rasengan, it'll hurt the puppet, but it shouldn't like wipe it out. It'll damage it or something like that. But it's still got the weird moves people can sing into the ground. The other puppets are like the mud creature things. So I think they have to use the summoning jutsu. That's my prediction for it. But we'll love to know yours. And like I said, we'd definitely love to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.